Welcome to Bible Study with Fred. Today I'm reading from Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verses 4 on the way to the end of the chapter. Please follow along with me in your Bible if you can. And I'm going to read 4 to 8 first. When thou vowest a vow unto God, defer not to pay it, for he hath no pleasure in fools. Pay that which thou hast vowed. Better is it that thou shouldest not vow, than that thou shouldest vow and not pay. Suffer not thy mouth to cause thy flesh to sin, neither say thou before the angel that it was in error. Wherefore should God be angry at thy voice, and destroy the work of thine hands? For in the multitude of dreams and many words there are also diverse vanities, but fear thou God. If thou seest the oppression of the poor, and violent perverting of judgment and justice in the province, marvel not at the matter. For he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. Here, Solomon is recommending that a Jew not make a vow to the Lord, as he pointed out in the previous passage. Those are often rash and not well considered. Jephthah made a rash vow in a moment of excitement when he offered the first thing that came out of his house, which unknown to him was to be his daughter, be a burnt offering, Judges 11:31. His daughter could have suffered that fate or have been dedicated to the Lord like Samuel, Judges 11:37, depending on which commentator you read, although it would seem doubtful that God would have approved of Jephthah in Hebrews 11:32 if he had committed such an egregious sin that God said such a thing never came into his mind for a man to do in Jeremiah 19:5 and 32:35. It seems absurd that one should vow something for God that the fulfilling of results in a great and horrible sin against God. Lord, if you get this job, get me this job. I promise I'll go out and rob the first bank I come to. Or uh, most likely, as their animals shared their living space, evidenced by passages in the Bible, he was thinking of a goat or a sheep, not a human. For verse 7, we're reminded of the lament of Jeremiah. Jeremiah 23, 25, and 27. I've heard what the prophet said that prophesy lies in my name, saying, I have dreamed, I have dreamed. How long shall this be in the heart of the prophets to prophesy lies? Yea, they are prophets of deceit of their own heart, which think to cause my people to forget my name by their dreams, which they tell every man to his neighbor, as their fathers have forgotten my name for Baal. Solomon then asserts that we should not be too dismayed over the injustices we see, because God sees it all and will judge it. So here he says not to do not promise rashly to God. Do not listen to people who include God as a co-conspirator in their lying agenda by saying he spoke to them in a dream, and understand that God does see all wrongs committed and will call them to account. We must remember, though, that this is in a reference to the kingdom of Israel, not to the lost heathen of the world around them. If we narrow the focus to God's people, we might be able to speak of the church by saying, don't make promises to God you either cannot keep or do not have the will to keep to get some mercy or benefit or impress others. Don't listen to people who say God told them something to do something or laid something on their heart without comparing it to scriptural principles. And don't worry when you see an injustice in the church organization, as God is concerned about it. I'm sure anyone can think of several things that would fall in line with that. A person comes to church and has messed up at his job and is about to get fired over it. He promises God that if he can keep his job, he'll give half his income to the church. That's not likely to happen, is it? Remember the old joke about the man who promises God that if God lets him win the lottery, he'll give 50% of it to God. God says to him, really? You don't give me 10% now. Why would I believe you give me 50% of the lottery? Then there's the man who tells his pastor that God has laid it on his heart to have a Bible study in a bar. Really? You think so? Sometimes what people say God has laid on their hearts is just the result of their own carnal imagination. On the last point, maybe you know someone in the congregation who's been falsely accused of some impropriety by someone in the congregation with influence who you know doesn't like the person. Don't worry or fret. God sees that and will deal with it. He is concerned about injustice among his people. I know you can think of better analogies to make this verse apply to today. Solomon is directly speaking of his own kingdom and God's hand in its affairs. Um, I think I'm going to stop there today, finish with verse 8, and pick it up with verse 9 and the rest of the chapter next time. I just want you to think about and pray about what I said, if you consider it at all. And click like if you would. Please read your Bible and then study your Bible. Cross-reference the verses and pray to God for wisdom and understanding, and then share your interpretation with someone else. I really think if more Christians would let God speak to them through his Bible, Christians would have less problems. But, you know, anyway, thank you for listening today.